Dr. Fauci potentially going to jail. I don't see any way around it. Are you ready for breaking news that's going to break your brain, break your face wide open, break the global medical establishment around the planet? You are not ready for this. Breaking documents linking Dr. Fauci directly to gain of function research, more aptly called and described, because gain of function I don't believe is the right word for it, more aptly called bio-warfare. That's right, I'll say it, that's what it is. I'm going to say this, it's my opinion. When you take a virus that is deadly but is not transmissible to humans and you make it transmissible to humans for the sheer pathological perversity of making something that is just more deadly on this planet, that could just be a bastardization of nature that could kill millions, then yes, you are weaponizing nature itself. That is precisely what it is. That is what I call it. That is my opinion. That is weaponizing nature. Gain of function, too nice of a term. Now we know through leaked documents that have been acquired by The Intercept of all places. The Intercept, what used to be a truth-telling site that has devolved a little bit into a left-wing rag, now coming back roaring, explaining the actual reality of the evil and wicked people who run our government. Yes, evil, but the banality of evil. What is evil? Why do I say Dr. Fauci is evil? Because evil doesn't discriminate. When evil acts, it acts in order to make the world a worse place. And it is inarguable that of every person on this planet right now, Dr. Fauci has made the world a worse place. That, I believe, is the truest statement ever said on this channel or any channel. Dr. Fauci is evil. We are going to go through in this live. We have done our research. We've been up early researching ever since the story broke to tell you everything that you need to know right now about what happens to Dr. Fauci next. What we are learning currently and what he has said in the past that incriminates him. This man is a doomed man. Recently, there were reports that the Biden administration was looking to get rid of Dr. Fauci. Those reports have not materialized. I don't see any way that he survives outside of a jail cell at this point, and I will present to you the evidence for that. What I'm about to describe to you is directly out of a Bond villain film. It's what the evil people do, okay? They make the world worse. It's pretty much the easiest test of an evil person. Do they make the world worse?
Disinformation and misinformation is really a very serious issue.
Get ready. I'm about to read to you from The Intercept. Newly released documents provide details of U.S.-funded research on several types of coronaviruses. At the Wuhan Institute of Virology in China, The Intercept has obtained more than 900 pages of documents detailing the work of EcoHealth Alliance, US-based health organization that used federal money, not federal money, strike that, your money, my money. They took money out of our back pockets. They inflated our dollar with this type of research. They stole money from you, they stole money from me at gunpoint, and then they handed it to the Chinese communists in order to birth a pathogen onto this earth. I read to you. 900 pages of documents detailing the work of EcoHealth Alliance, a US-based health organization that used federal money to fund bat coronavirus research at the Chinese laboratory. A trove of documents include two previously unpublished grant proposals that were funded by the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, as well as a project updates relating to EcoHealth Alliance's research, which has been scrutinized amid increased interest in the origins of the pandemic. The documents were released in conjunction with ongoing Freedom of Information Act by The Intercept against the National Institutes of Health. The Intercept is making the full documents available to the public. This is a roadmap to the high-risk research that could have led to the current pandemic, says Gary Ruskin, executive director of the U.S. Right to Know, a group that has been investigating the origins of COVID-19. One of the grants, titled Understanding the Risk of Bat Coronavirus Emergence, outlines the ambitious efforts led by EcoHealth Alliance President Peter Daszak to screen thousands of bat samples for novel coronaviruses. The research also involves screening people who work with live animals. The documents contain several critical details about research in Wuhan, including the fact that key experimental work with humanized mice, meaning mice that have cellular development that acts as a human petri dish, essentially, was conducted at Biosafety Level 3 lab in Wuhan Center for Animal Experiment, and not at the Wuhan Institute of Virology as previously assumed. The documents raise additional questions about the theory that the pandemic may have begun in a lab accident, an idea, of course, that Peter Daszak dismissed. Continuing to read because it's important, the final thing, and then I'll link all this together. The bat coronavirus grant provided EcoHealth Alliance with a total of $1.3 million, including $599,000 that the Wuhan Institute of Virology used in part to identify and alter bat coronaviruses likely to infect humans. Even before the pandemic, many scientists were concerned that the potential dangers of associating with such experiments. The grant proposal acknowledges some of those dangers. Fieldwork involves the highest risk of exposure to SARS or COVID while working in caves with high bat density overhead and the potential for fecal dust to be inhaled. Let me explain what's happening here. Because the problem is that we often do the research ourselves and we don't actually explain what's going on. The Wuhan Institute of Virology was like Satan's playground. The kind of experiments that Anthony Fauci and his ghoulish cabal here, his evil, weaponized nature against ourselves cabal here in this country has banned. So you cannot do this kind of research in America. So they would go and they would fund that research in China, where there are no bans on this. Dr. Fauci took the money from Americans, from our back pockets at gunpoint. Dr. Fauci takes the money from us as taxpayers. He can't do the ghoulish, mad scientist, evil doctor research he wants to do here in America, because what he wants to do is he wants to take something that exists in nature, a coronavirus, okay? It's the coronavirus. It exists inside of animal reservoirs. That is inside of a bat. Often, it is found inside of a bat. These bats, specifically horseshoe bats, live in south of China. These bats are natural reservoirs of coronavirus. They live with them. They live with them high up in caves that are super rural, way up in the mountains. I mean, you really have to go there. You have to physically insert yourself into these caves, and the caves are very dangerous because as the bats defecate and as they spit, the coronaviruses leave their bodies and become susceptible to human beings. They know this because they actually studied the small Chinese villages around these caves and found that those people were being infected with novel coronaviruses. Why? Because they were going up into the caves, they were potentially eating things that had been contaminated by the bats. So he takes the ghoulish, bastardized experiments that we would never allow in this country because they're too damn dangerous, and then he takes them and he puts them in China. Chinese virologist and researcher Shi Zhenli is the foremost coronavirus expert when it comes to bats. She works in the Wuhan Virology Institute. Shi Zhenli is called Bat Lady in the community of scientists globally because she is famous for her work on bat coronaviruses. Anthony Fauci gives her all his cash and goes, why don't you go find more bat coronaviruses and see if you can add and manipulate the spike protein in order to make sure they can infect humans. And then do that inside of a laboratory that is notorious. This is long history, the Wuhan Virology Laboratory has a long history of infecting its own researchers. There are independent Chinese research mechanisms that have written, they are public, that have written about how the researchers studying at this laboratory have a long understood history of being spit on by the bats, of being sprayed with bat blood, and of getting the pathogens that they are creating in a laboratory shot into the human, onto them as humans. These are not safe conditions. These are conditions where you would have the animal that has been experimented on to make the viruses that exist inside of them susceptible to humans, because it's very, very difficult to do animal to human transmission. They have made it more susceptible to human at the cost of the American taxpayer. Anthony Fauci funds this. He essentially launders the money through EcoHealth Alliance and Peter Daszak. That money then funds this ghoulish experiment, taking the coronaviruses. This laboratory would go out, pull the bats from the caves, pull them back into Wuhan. The bats don't live in Wuhan. The bats aren't from Wuhan. They pull the bats out of their natural environment, way far up in the caves, safe, away from human beings, yank them into the laboratory, experiment by adding and manipulating the coronaviruses inside of them. Then those bats spray blood and urine onto the researchers. Those researchers get sick. They go out into the regular population. Boom. There you go. There's your COVID virus. Fauci then gets called on by Rand Paul, and Rand Paul said this to Dr. Fauci.
Dr. Fauci, knowing that it is a crime to lie to Congress, do you wish to retract your statement of May 11th where you claimed that the NIH never funded gain-of-function research in Wuhan?
Senator Paul, I have never lied before the Congress, and I do not retract that statement. This paper that you are referring to was judged by qualified staff up and down the chain as not being gain of function. Let me finish.
You take an animal virus and you increase its transmissibility to humans,
right.
You're saying that's not gain of function?
Yeah, that is correct. And Senator Paul, you do not know what you are talking about, quite frankly. And I want to say that officially. You do not know what you are talking about. Okay, you get one person.
Let's read from the NIH definition of gain of function.
Now we know he was lying to Congress. Rand Paul had the information, had the details, had the knowledge of what Fauci was doing, and Fauci was lying. Does Anthony Fauci look guilty here? Are we over the target? You decide. Watch.
Dr. Fauci, knowing that it is a crime to lie to Congress, do you wish to retract your statement of May 11th where you claimed that the NIH never funded gain-of-function research in Wuhan?
Yeah, that is correct. And Senator Paul, you do not know what you are talking about, quite frankly. And I want to say that officially. You do not know what you are talking about. Okay, you get one person.
Let's read from the NIH definition of gain of function. This is your definition that you guys wrote. It says that scientific research that increases the transmissibility among mammals is gain of function. They took animal viruses that only occur in animals and they increased their transmissibility to humans. How you can say that is not gain of function?
It is not.
It's a dance, and you're dancing around this because you're trying to obscure responsibility for 4 million people dying around the world from a pandemic.
And let's send Dr. Fauci.
I have to, well, now you're getting into something. If the point that you are making is that the grant that was funded as a sub-award from EcoHealth to Wuhan created SARS-CoV-2. That's where you are getting. Let me finish.
We don't know.
Well,
we don't
wait
know
a minute.
If it did come from the lab, but all the evidence is pointing that it came from the lab, and there will be responsibility for those who funded the lab, including yourself.
I totally
This committee will allow the witness to respond.
I totally resent the lie that you are now propagating, Senator, because if you look at the viruses that were used in the experiments, that were given in the annual reports, that were published in the literature, It is molecularly impossible.
No one's saying those viruses caused it.
It
no
is
one is alleging that
molecularly.
those viruses caused the pandemic. What we're alleging is that gain-of-function research was going on in that lab, and NIH funded it.
That is
you can't
not.
get away from it. It meets your definition, and you are obfuscating the truth.
I'm not obfuscating the truth.
Senator
You are the
Paul's
one.
time is expired, but I will allow the witness to.
Let me just finish. I want everyone to understand that if you look at those viruses, and that's judged by qualified virologists and evolutionary biologists, those viruses are molecularly impossible
No one's
to
saying
result
they are. No
in
one's saying those viruses
SARS-CoV-2.
caused the pandemic.
Senator Paul,
We're saying they are gain-of-function viruses because they were
they're not.
animal viruses that became more transmissible in human, and you funded it.
And
won't
you
admit the truth.
And you
Senator
implying
Paul, your time has expired, and I will allow witnesses who come before this committee to respond.
and you are implying that what we did was responsible for the deaths of individual. I totally resent
could
that.
have
And
been.
if anybody
could
is
have been.
lying here, Senator, it is you.
You have kids. When your kids are guilty of something, and you catch them, how do they behave? Do they behave calm, cool, shrug it off? Will they know they're going to get in trouble when they know that they are guilty? How does human nature behave? So much about what the left does these days, and so much about the nature of lying, is denying human nature. Yet, it is remarkable how a professional liar, a rat in a lab coat like Dr. Fauci, can himself not be able to lie well enough that you can't see all the tells. The shaking hand, the raising voice, the stammering, the looking around, the pointing. He's guilty. What a goblin this man is. We have reports of him experimenting on dogs, reports of him experimenting on animals. This guy is a wicked and evil human being. Dr. Fauci deserves to be stripped of all grandeur, resign in disgrace. You know what? We got Cuomo. This is one scumbag down. Fauci needs to be next. He is the rat king on top of the rat pile. And this guy has got to go down. Thank you for watching. We are 100% independent news. Are you sick of being lied to? We certainly are. It's why we started this channel. But we can't do it without you. We can't keep going without your help. All we ask is that you click like and subscribe and share this video. It's free. And it keeps us going, it keeps us growing, and it keeps us getting the truth out there to break the rotted corporate media infrastructure that wants to lie to you every single day, wants to corrupt your narratives, your truth, your story, and your very society. So support us by clicking like, clicking subscribe, and thank you, Patriots.